Hi, I'm Nicola Correia-Damude, and I'm here on FrConventions. I think there was season 2 was really interesting because it was the transition period. So season 1, we saw some glimpses of more of the humanity, but mostly she was very driven. It was very focused on the Institute. And then season 3, we really saw the transformation, and we saw her come out the other end as, you know, a great mother and family focused, and she lost a lot of that sort of kill or be killed attitude. But season 2 was interesting because she was right in the middle. She was in the beginning stages of changing, but was still one foot in the other world. So I think season 2, particularly around the time of Max's rune ceremony, around that time, I think I found the most interesting to play, yeah. I think as a mother, my son was 6 months old when I started doing Shadowhunters, so I'd just become a parent. Now, of course, on the show, my kids are, you know, in their late 20s, but having just become a parent, I think what really resonated with me is the idea that in a lifetime we make a lot of mistakes, and we don't always look back and like all of the things that we did. And the question is, how do you move forward with your life and find a way to forgive yourself and move on? And how do you deal with the fact that there's people in your life who might not want to forgive you? And how do you embrace the people who do? So that question of how do we mature and age and leave the parts that we're not happy with in our past behind, but also let them inform our future. I think that's a really important takeaway for anyone, yeah. In terms of the chemistry between Matt and Em and I have to be honest, it was pretty easy. Like, we got along really well. The first scene we did together was very emotional, and I was very mean in it. So you would think that it would set a weird tone, but actually we got to meet before that, and so we had some nice interactions, and it really was pretty easy. We got along as people, and I think we had similar acting styles in terms of the way we worked, so it really wasn't, it came very naturally, which isn't always the case, so that was really nice, yeah. Yeah, that was interesting because, you know, there's a lot of debate, and the fans, I think, have different ideas, and I think, you know, it was never sort of clear, and I think intentionally, whether her problem with Magnus was just that he was a warlock, or if it was that Alec was gay. She never says which one it is, and maybe it's a bit of both for her. But I think ultimately, Maryse's anxiety level, her priorities are all messed up in the first season, and I think she's actually just not thinking about her kids very much. She's lost touch with that. So I think it was more about that than about his sexuality, where she just wanted him to do the right thing for the Institute. She wasn't thinking about his needs, she wasn't thinking about his feelings. And then I really think when she sees how happy he is, for her it takes precedence over everything else. And you also, as an actor, you have to sort of follow the writing, and with the writing, you know, the story, we don't write the stories, right? So the stories go where they go, and you have to figure out how to justify it as the character. And I think it was pretty easy to follow because the writing was quite clear in terms of her process, right? Like, she just wants him to marry the person who's going to move the family forward, and then once she loses her kids, and once they sort of say this isn't okay, she has to come around, and she does, yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, I think one of the most special things about the show is that relationship. It's the central relationship, and it's an important relationship for many reasons. Like, that relationship is about overcoming barriers, And not just sexuality, but overcoming the fact that that Magnus is a warlock and Alec is a shadow hunter, overcoming the fact that Magnus is, hundreds of years older than him. Like, I'm not exactly sure the number, but so, it really is a symbol of sort of love conquering all. I also just think it's so important to tell stories where the central characters are, like the fact that the central relationship is a gay couple, that's really not that common in television still to this day. So that was one of my favorite things about the show. One of the things that drew me to the show was that is so key, that relationship, it's so important to tell that story. We're not telling that story enough, and I think that's a big part of what so many of the fans are drawn to, is telling an honest story about the love between these two young men, and they face adversity, but they make it through, right? I think that's really important. I mean, the obvious one would be the wedding, but I actually think the scene on the roof at Max's rune ceremony when Matt almost jumps and Magnus stops him, and we're all up there together. Not just the family, because it's not just Emeraude, or it's not just Isabelle and Alec and Maryse and Magnus. It's also, I think Simon was there, and I can't remember if Clary was there, but it's not just the immediate family, but the extended family coming together to protect Alec and to save Alec. And I think that's another big message of the story of Shadowhunters, is your chosen family, right? So, Clary loses her mom, but she gains Luke, and she gains Maryse, and she gains this other family. So to me, that scene was the beginning of that chosen family coming together. So that's probably, the roof and the rune ceremony was a big one, yeah. I mean, it was something that I didn't see coming at all until halfway through season 2. Isaiah and I did a scene, and I was like, oh, this feels interesting. I remember him being like, I think we're gonna get together. I loved it because I think it's important to show that someone in Maryse's position, her husband cheats on her, she loses her marriage, her behavior makes her lose her kids. Like, things happen in life and they're hard. But if you do the right thing and you listen to, let yourself be led by good decisions and by your care for other people, it can lead you somewhere positive. And I think Maryse ends up much happier at the end of the series than she was in the beginning. And the relationship with Luke is also a lot about forgiveness, right? And a lot about starting over, because they knew each other when they were young, and she's not proud of who she was then. And, a lot of people won't accept her back into the folds after everything comes out about what she did with the clave. And Luke gets that and understands that. And so on one hand, they have this history that's very fraught and difficult, but he allows them to have a new life together. That, I think, is a really beautiful relationship, but also just a beautiful reminder that we can do that, right? We can move forward. So I loved it. And I mean, Isaiah is such a great scene partner. We had a great time. He's such a pro and such a nice guy. And he was, he's a dad in real life. And so he and I were the only people with kids on the show at the time. Now, obviously, Matt and Harry do as well, but we were the only two. So it was just really nice, yeah. He's a great guy. It's interesting because I feel like in interviews and stuff, most people are like, oh yeah, our cat's like a little family. It's not always true, right? Like it's just not. That's okay. It doesn't have to be. Like, you're there to do a job, and some shows you do in their jobs, and good morning, good evening, and you go about your life. But I will say that this group of people, we genuinely are friends, and we really love spending time together, and we've been through a lot. I mean, I was just saying I was talking to Dom about this last night. Like, when we started the show, I was a new mom. I had a 6-month-old baby. I had no social life. I was a working mom, and these guys were the first people to be like, come on, let's go out. They would like take me out with them. We'd do fun stuff, and they were sort of the first friends that I made as a new mother in a new phase of my life. And we just got really lucky that we actually do all really get along. We all have very different relationships, but also so many of our relationships have developed through the conventions, right? So for example, like Alberto and I never worked together on the show. We were in the same scenes a couple of times, but I don't think we ever spoke to each other. Will and I think only had one scene together. Luke and I never had any scenes together. Chai and I never had any scenes together, and we actually became close friends through the conventions that we've done the last number of years. So there's the show, and then there's our life as people doing this convention work together. And for me, the conventions have been even more sort of grounded in friendship and making new friends than the show was. And it's been years, it's been longer than we were shooting the show, right?